that, frame raider. I'm just coming off a ferocious battle with the virus, so my voice might sound a bit nasally compared to the usual, but the show must go on. In 1989, just months after Nintendo's hugely successful Game Boy, Atari joined the handheld market with the Atari Lynx. It all started when the co-founder of Amiga, David Shannon Morse, joined a computer software team known as Epyx. When thinking of new ideas to keep the company afloat, David's son suggested they create a handheld gaming system, and thus, development began on what they called the Handy Game. Things were looking good. That is, until Epyx ran into financial difficulties with the project. As a result, they sold their idea to Atari, who helped them finish the handheld under a brand new name, the Atari Lynx. It became the first handheld not only to have a color screen, but also backlighting, thus tackling two of the Game Boy's biggest criticisms. Not to mention, it's a 16-bit system. Two models were released over its lifetime. The one you see here is the Lynx II, which I got because I thought it looked better and took up less space. But are there any differences beyond the design? I've never used a Lynx 1, though apparently it had a better speaker, and some tend to like its D-pad and buttons more. The most notable differences with the Lynx 2 are that it supports stereo sound, has a headphone jack, and an hour or more of extra battery life. It takes 6 AA batteries, by the way, which give you between 4 to 6 hours of gameplay. Alternatively, you can use an AC adapter to play at home without using batteries. The screen is said to be a little better on the Lynx 2, though by today, both models aren't holding up too well. As is common with old LCD screens, moving images tend to blur, which can make certain games difficult to play. Something both models share in common is that they're ambidextrous. By pressing Option 2 and Flip at the same time, the screen flips upside down, with the controls adjusting to the change. The Lynx is the only system I'm aware of that has this built in as a feature. Another uncommon feature is the ability to mute in-game music, which is done by pressing the Option 2 button. Or rather, that's what happens in most games, as there are a few games that use this button for in-game functions, like Pinball Jam for example. Here's an Atari Lynx game box. Inside you'll find the manual, a warranty card, and the game cartridge. Speaking of, how about that design? Official Lynx games have a curved lip, making it super easy to pull them out of the system. The Lynx sounds great so far, but how much did it cost to buy one? The first model launched at 180 USD. Meanwhile, Game Boys were selling for 90 USD. Just short of a year after the Lynx launched, Sega would release the Game Gear at 150 USD, which was $30 cheaper than the Lynx. As if in response to this, the second model Lynx launched after the Game Gear at 100 USD, but at this point it was too late. The Lynx was discontinued in 1995, selling around 3 million units in total, which is a big difference compared with the Game Gear at 10.6 million units. But the Game Gear wasn't a massive success either, at least with the original Game Boy in mind. That thing was a titan, selling roughly 65 million units. Did the Lynx ever really stand a chance? Today we'll be taking a look at all 71 Atari Lynx games. This doesn't consider the many aftermarket, unlicensed, and prototype games, as I try to keep this series limited to retail releases, if just to make the task less daunting. Remember, these library videos are mostly first impressions. I don't always get things 100%, though try my best to give accurate commentary. Ultimately, the intention is to give a brief overview of the games, so you can decide for yourself what to play. Now, without further ado, APB, All Points Bulletin. You play as a cop trying to fill your quotas for the day. What you'll be looking for is shown to you before entering a level. Aim your cursor over color-coordinated ne'er-do-wells in order to arrest them. Alternatively, you might need to pick people up or collect traffic cones. Getting used to the controls takes a while. Even 20 minutes later, I still found myself crashing into things now and then. Okay. APB has a couple voice samples, which is actually very common in Atari Lynx games. This is a good interpretation of the original arcade game, although the screen size does make it a bit difficult to play. Still worthy of a recommendation, though. Awesome Golf.
Let's play Awesome Golf!
An Atari Lynx exclusive. Ever wondered what the sound font of America, the United Kingdom, and Japan would be? It's a nice looking game, especially when preparing your shot. Knowing what the different clubs are used for is actually essential for the game. That is if you want any kind of good score. I wouldn't say Awesome Golf is complex, but elaborate and detailed. Had fun with this one. Baseball Heroes. This is the only game that I couldn't get to work on any Lynx emulator, no matter what I tried. So here I'm using a video by World of Longplay. Baseball Heroes is a Lynx exclusive, with some pretty nice animations. You can adjust the batter's position and direction of the pitch by the look of things. Being able to see from several different perspectives is a nice touch. That said, I've heard mixed things about the actual gameplay. Apparently the timing for hitting the ball is extremely precise. I don't have the means of determining the quality of this game firsthand, so I'll just leave it at that. Basketbrawl. This was released 2 years after the 7800 version. Choose your favorite character, each with different stats. Then it's into the game where you'll be shooting hoops and attacking others with whatever you can find lying around. It's not a bad concept, though its presentation here isn't particularly good. Most of the time, all you're hearing is the ball repeatedly hitting the ground, and that's pretty annoying. Gameplay is functional, although choppy. Some might be able to enjoy this, but I wouldn't recommend it myself. Batman Returns. This is a multi-platform game from its time. Doesn't look bad, and for the most part it plays well, though, especially with the screen size in mind, it's quite difficult. Enemies often show up within less than a second's notice. You have a better chance just jumping through the level, but then the boss at the end doesn't go down so easily. This is a nice looking game on the Lynx, and I had fun with it, but getting used to it will definitely take some patience. BattleWheels, another Lynx exclusive. In this vehicular combat game, you'll explore an open environment while looking for opponents. Once you find one, take them down. But be aware of the driver, who might sprint after you once you've destroyed their car. You'll be on the opposite end of this too, sometimes. You're able to customize your vehicle, adding weapons to the front, side, and back. This requires you to change your perspective, which is a really cool feature. And BattleWheels isn't the only Lynx game to do this, remarkably. To change perspectives, you're required to hold the B button while pressing the D-pad in the appropriate direction. This can be a bit confusing at first, but once you've gotten used to it, you'll find that BattleWheels is an awesome game. Battlezone 2000, an expensive Lynx exclusive that I would have bought if it wasn't so expensive. As per a typical game of Battlezone, you'll be navigating an open environment with vector graphics. This must have been really cool to see on your Lynx back when. What makes 2000 special is that you can choose from a variety of tanks and upgrade them as you go with new weapons and defenses. This is one of the cool things about the Lynx library. A lot of older titles have been modernized with upgrade shops that expand on the original gameplay. Also, there's apparently a whole nother secret campaign that I didn't even know about until writing this script. Whether that was there or not, I would still give this a recommendation. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Yet to explore this franchise myself, so I'm going into this one blindly. It apparently takes place after the second film. The plot regards time travel, with their girlfriends having been kidnapped in time, leaving pages of their latest song throughout history as a bread trail. The goal is to collect enough notes to unlock the next time travel location. With a Comlinks cable, sold separately, you can play this in cooperative, with one playing as Bill and the other as Ted on a second Lynx. This is an interesting little RPG that might be worth your time, especially if you're a fan of Bill and Ted. Blockout. It's a 3D Tetris clone with just one overhead perspective. Takes some time to get used to, but it becomes second nature pretty quickly. Not much to say about it beyond what you're seeing here. I thought it was interesting, but is anyone looking at this game and saying, "Man, I gotta try that game"? Probably not. Blue Lightning. This was an exclusive until a version came to the Jaguar CD. You pilot a blue F-18, which I'm guessing is a reference to the Blue Angels. The plane accelerates forward with no ability to change directions, although you can move the screen around quite a bit by steering left or right. You've got objectives to follow, which are basically just shoot this or shoot that. Shoot everything, really. Like Afterburner and Outrun, the location changes for each stage. This helps to keep the game from feeling repetitive. Blue Lightning is a technical marvel for the system, and a great time altogether. Fun fact, the F-18 Super Hornet is going out of production in 2025, and won't be used in service after 2030. How sad. California Games, another multi-platform game. This consists of several sports to play, including BMX, surfing, skateboarding on a halfpipe, and footbag. Each has a unique learning curve to it. Wasn't long into the footbag game where I noticed that I could make them dance. These are very colorful games, all with their own funky soundtracks. You'll need some time to adjust to the controls, but each of these were great fun to try. Checkered Flag. You might know of the infamous Jaguar version that followed this up. Well, Checkered Flag on the Lynx isn't nearly as bad. In fact, racing is pretty fun, although quite difficult. After a single mistake, it's not easy to get your position back. There are numerous maps to play, each with distinct environments. Good graphics overall, though most of the surrounding land is a single-colored texture. After enough practice, this could be an enjoyable time waster. Chips Challenge. You probably know about this famous Sokoban puzzler already, made popular in the Best of Microsoft Entertainment pack, although it actually got its start right here on the Lynx. In Chips Challenge, collect all the chips, then make your way to the exit. But beware, as many hazards and tricky traps stand in your way. Use special boots to cross dangerous terrain, and collect keys to unlock essential doors. While not my favorite version of the game, Chips Challenge is in general a phenomenal puzzler. Crystal Mines 2, a sequel to an NES game, and a Lynx exclusive. What an unusual combination! Crystal Mines 2 plays similarly to the game Boulder Dash. By playing as this robot, you'll have to crush your enemies with boulders while collecting crystals to unlock the nearby goal. You'll need to be cautious of those boulders yourself, as they can equally crush you. One thing I noticed is that the screen doesn't move at the same speed as the robot, which is a little funky, but not a problem really. The game is great fun in short bursts. Give it a try. Desert Strike: Return to the Gulf. Another multi-platform game from its time. In Desert Strike, you'll pilot this helicopter in a free-roaming environment. Complete objectives by destroying enemy bases, satellites, and artillery. You can easily check your objectives at any time by using the pause button to show your map. This also shows where to pick up fuel and ammo crates. While a bit strange without music, you'll find that completing missions in Desert Strike is rewarding, and a great deal of fun. Dinolympics. This game is known for another title, The Humans. You'll be controlling one caveman at a time, placing each at an essential spot so that the next caveman can easily progress to the next point. You'll also have the caveman collect sticks to use for jumping big gaps, but be sure to leave the stick for the next guy who might also be required to pass. I never liked when these sorts of games gave you a time limit. In fact, for Dinolympics, I often found the given time isn't fair to how much needs to be done. Should you be able to move fast enough though, you'll probably enjoy this game. Dirty Larry: Renegade Cop. Initially, this Lynx exclusive seems to be a good time. It's very detailed and has a charming set of cutscenes, which progress the story as you continue through the game. Unfortunately, enemies often pop up out of nowhere on the right of the screen, which gives you little time to react. The lack of background music is also a bit strange. That being said, I do find the game enjoyable during the moments where it plays fair. You'll definitely need that gun, because your fists aren't very powerful on their own. To restart after a game is over, you'll need to reboot the Lynx, as you can't get back to the menu otherwise. There are a few games that do this on the Lynx, and I'm not sure why. I feel Dirty Larry is at least worth a try. Double Dragon. Not a bad looking version of the arcade game, but moving your character around, especially on this small screen, can be a bit troublesome. I'd sometimes find myself almost stuck between two enemies. It's still quite playable though, so back when, this was probably a serviceable conversion. Still a bit unusual how the sound is almost exclusively the background music, with a few very short impact blips. Personally, I have a hard time recommending this with the availability of other, better versions to play. Dracula the Undead. A point-and-click Lynx exclusive. You're an English solicitor sent to Transylvania to meet with Dracula, who has sinister plans. This follows the original Dracula novel, and is apparently very faithful to the source material. I love the sepia look, which gives this a vintage feel on the already vintage Lynx. Navigating around Dracula's castle is creepy, especially with that short looping music which, while repetitive, does play into the spook factor. There isn't that much interactivity here, but I feel that actually works in its favor since there's less distractions to confuse the player. Many consider this the best Dracula video game to date. I can see why. I've read a number of comments about Atari holding back the development of this game. Supposedly it was at one point much longer. A modern remaster is far overdue. Electrocop, another Lynx exclusive. This one's pretty ambitious. Inspired by Robocop, you play as the Electrocop, who has only an hour to save the president's daughter. In the game, you'll be navigating a maze-like environment while finding codes, opening doors, and shooting bad guys. But feel free to stop at the terminals for a moment to play a game of Meteors, Letter Puzzle, or Outbreak. Alright, who installed Homebrew on the terminals again? I really like what they've done with this interface. It's extremely elaborate with detailed stats on the enemies, weapons, utilities, etc. This game is a technical marvel, with interesting gameplay. I wouldn't do a full playthrough, but it's certainly worth a look. European Soccer Challenge. Well, it's soccer. These graphics, all things considered, pretty good. Smart to use 2 different colors for the pixelated grass. It's very convincing when scrolling across the screen. Although I'm unsure how noticeable that'd be on an actual Lynx screen. I'm not a huge sports enthusiast, which will be obvious the more we get into this video, but regardless, I feel this is a perfectly fine version of soccer for the platform. The Fidelity Ultimate Chess Challenge. Right, I haven't played chess since I was little. I will say though, the overlapping pieces, especially at a distance, are difficult to interpret. I guess there's an overhead mode that I completely missed out on. This is a charming little game with nice shaded graphics. You can play against another friend using the same links, so that's nice. Perhaps a good version of chess, but I'm not the best person to consult about that. Gates of Zendocon, a Lynx exclusive. I've never played a shmup like this before. Its approach to level design is fairly abstract. Each stage of what I played has a unique set of enemies that come at you in unusual formations. Might seem repetitive at first, but levels are short, so you'll be frequently adapting to the new situations. Some levels you'll just be navigating around obstacles. You can get hit up to 3 times, with each hit affecting your performance and weaponry. At the end of a stage you'll play a short, almost mini-game in order to replace your damaged chip for a new one. This isn't the best example of a shmup in my books, but it's interesting enough to at least give a try. Gauntlet: The Third Encounter, a Lynx exclusive. In Gauntlet, you fight hordes of monsters in appropriately sized labyrinths, all while trying to find the exit. Collect treasures and keys to progress further. As you can tell, the screen here is displayed vertically. You have to hold your Lynx sideways to play this one. There's a fake first-person view on the bottom left that really helps in anticipating oncoming threats and treasure. Considering the small screen size, this was an excellent way to inform players who may otherwise be caught off guard. Gauntlet: The Third Encounter is one Lynx game that I strongly recommend. Gordo 106, the Mutated Lab Monkey, another Lynx exclusive. You play as a caged lab monkey who's been exploited for science. After making a daring escape, your objective is to free the other animals and exit the evil laboratory. What a neat concept, but does the gameplay live up to it? It absolutely does. First of all, it looks great, with highly detailed environments. Secondly, it's easy to control. I love how you can double tap the D-pad to run, which initiates a hilarious animation. Be sure to collect apples, as you may need some to throw at the 2-frame humans that stand in your way. This is a solid platformer, highly recommended. Hard Drivin'. Well, you can say that again. These days, this arcade game is a bit of a niche. Being an at-the-time graphically impressive racer meant to give you the true feeling of driving. That's well and fine. In the arcades. I mean, look at these cars. They're just a bunch of warping squares. There are some pretty cool landscapes here, but that doesn't really matter because it's unbelievably difficult to actually drive the car. Can't vouch for the arcade game, but this here is just short of unplayable. Hockey, a Lynx exclusive. This plays quite nicely, with effective, detailed graphics. Animations are good too, with player moves being recognizable despite their small figures. Love that screen where the referee drops the puck, and it's pretty incredible that you can actually fight other players here. Again, I'm no expert, but I think it's a fine version of hockey. Hydra. At first I was thinking, this is kinda jank. I was constantly running into things. However, once you get used to the depth perception, it's not as hard as it looks. The genre of speedboat racing isn't common in the first place, so it was really cool to see this attempted on the Lynx. Like the arcade game it's based on, you can upgrade your boat's weapons after completing a level. You can also jump over the water for a brief period. The perspective definitely takes time to get used to, but by the end of my play session, I was really enjoying it. Ishido, The Way of Stones. Well, it's some sort of color matching game. I was able to put similar colors next to one another. Seems a little complicated, but the game does give you insightful tips when you do something wrong. Very simple graphics here, with some lighting detail on the blocks to make them stand out. Jimmy Connors Tennis.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Connors. Welcome to the Bella Country Club.
I found this very difficult to play. I don't know what kind of extremely precise timing is necessary for this one, but it's hardly worth the basic and repetitive gameplay. I guess there's some potential here, but misses the mark in my opinion. You might be thinking, well, you just don't know how to play professional tennis. Well, at least I can hit the ball. Should that really be any harder to do in a video game? Joust. Like the arcade game, bop your enemies on the head to win. It's Among Us balloon fight. The physics aren't as good as the original. You'll often be flung all over the place, even when surrounded by enemies, which usually marks death. It's still very playable, and the inconveniences aren't enough for me to call it bad. It's a worthy port in every other regard. Great sound, nice arcade graphics. Clax. Another vertical game, so be sure to hold that Lynx sideways. Clax is a quirky arcade game of matching colors in 3 tiles or more. Certain patterns give you more points. Sometimes you may find those patterns being necessary to finish a stage. Always loved the unique sound samples of Clax. And those are all here. This is a great time waster, even on the Lynx with this excellent arcade conversion. Kung Food, Lynx exclusive. Initially I had high hopes for this one. It has a lovely intro cinematic and beautiful in-game art. Kung Food is a side-scrolling beat-em-up with tons of charm and personality, as well as abysmal hit detection. I could just barely do damage to these guys, but even when I do, I end up taking far more damage than they do. I just gotta get good, right? If it weren't for this one crippling issue, I would have easily recommended this. Lemmings, a familiar multi-platform game where you lead the lemmings to the end-level goal however possible, whether that be digging holes, creating blockades, or literally exploding to create a path for the others. This excellent game of strategy was done very well on the Atari Lynx, although granted, I'm not sure if I've ever played a bad version of Lemmings. Lynx Casino, an exclusive, of course. Oh wow, it has an actual in-game hub for selecting tables. Excuse me, sir, do you have a nickel? Proud to have never gambled before, but that comes with the consequence of being unable to truly verdict this game. Well, honestly, so long as the games play accurately, then it all comes down to the presentation, right? I think. Well, in that regard, Lynx Casino is spectacular. Malibu Bikini Volleyball. Okay, I think I like this, but you have to be at very specific points depending on the opponent's shot. There's a method of quickly sliding over there, but matching to the square underneath in time is easier said than done. This game does have a decent reputation online. I'm more than willing to admit that I just suck at sports games. For me, they've always been more of a social thing, so I've barely played their video game forms and I know I'm very inexperienced here. Whatever the case, there's a lot to like about this one, particularly its presentation. Like the boats and water skiers in the background, great stuff. Miss Pac-Man. You know Miss Pac-Man. Just collect all those dots and eat the ghosts using power pellets. Great presentation here, although I noticed that the game tends to speed up mid-level rather than for each new table. Perfectly playable this way, just may take some adjustment for hardcore players. You can play in regular screen mode, or widescreen, which adds a lightning bolt power-up. This temporarily lets Miss Pac-Man soar through the level, much like the famous speed hack for the original arcade game. NFL Football, officially licensed for the Lynx. It's played vertically, with an overhead perspective. Really cool to see the game zoom out once a play begins, as you watch the sprites convert into a mess of pixels. I mean, what else could they do, right? There are some fun animations here, like when you score a goal, and plenty of voice samples too. Ninja Gaiden. If you're familiar with the NES game, this may be foreign to you, because it's based on the arcade version, which was apparently being developed at the same time. So this is a side-scrolling beat-em-up with pretty stellar graphics. It might be the best-looking 2D game on the Lynx, with environments and enemies that are all highly detailed. The gameplay? excellent. Fighting wave after wave of enemies is tons of fun, largely in part due to the ninja's energetic animations, and the hit sound which often plays in synchronization with the music. Strongly recommend this one. Ninja Gaiden 3, The Ancient Ship of Doom. An NES game gone Lynx. It starts with an interesting cinematic, where our ninja friend has been framed with the murder of a CIA analyst. Now he has to find out what really happened. The narrative continues as you progress through the game. Since this is based on the Ninja Gaiden 3 side-scroller, this time it's of course a side-scroller. Ninja Gaiden 3 is a great looking game, but this time prepare for a brutally old school experience. By the second level, enemies were spawning left and right, giving me a really hard time. On quicksand of all things. Can't speak for that level, but the one that comes before it was paced pretty well and had fair level design. If you're looking for a challenge, this one's for you. Pac-Land, a 2D platforming adventure where Pac-Man will need to avoid the ghosts, unless he finds a power pellet of course. Otherwise, collect bonuses like cherries and make your way to the level's end. May take a moment to adjust to the unusual control scheme. Should you run forward, you'll have to press the opposite direction to stop. It's not a big deal, but when you're pushed in a tight situation, you might end up panicking and land into a pit or a ghost. Beyond that, Pac-Land is a good time with its simple platforming, vivid graphics, and charming soundtrack. Paperboy. In this classic arcade game, you'll be delivering papers while avoiding whatever hazards block up the sidewalk. Be sure not to deliver to the wrong houses. After completing the initial run, there's an obstacle course. Be careful, if you don't know what you're doing, you might end up crashing. This game's been executed flawlessly on the Lynx. The characters may be a bit of a pixelated mess, but that's only because of the perspective being zoomed out, which is probably necessary to play efficiently. Pinball Jam, a Lynx exclusive. You've got 2 real boards to play, Elvira and the Party Monsters, as well as Police Force. This game of pinball can be a bit of a sensory overload, as the boards are highly detailed. It's easy enough to know where the ball is, but I found myself having a hard time learning about the bonuses when it all seems a bit meshed together. Still a good time though, as the best and only pinball game on Lynx. Pit Fighter. Never played the arcade game this is based on, but Lynx apparently has the best home version of it. I like that you can pick up weapons and toss them at enemies. I have no doubts that this was a lot of fun in the arcades, and I feel it kinda works on the Lynx, although it seems there's a big learning curve to get over to be able to play a successful game. Not a big fan of fighters myself, but this wasn't too bad. Power Factor, a Lynx exclusive Duke Nukem game. Or not. This dude's name is Red Ace, apparently. This is a more complicated game than meets the eye, with level design that resembles a labyrinth. From what I understand, the goal is to find 6 pieces of a bomb. You'll use nearby video displays to show a map, which will help you navigate the area. Meanwhile, you can use its database to learn about the enemies and weapons, much like Electrocop. Completing a zone gets you face to face with a boss, but you'll need to collect missiles first in order to take them down. Power Factor is an interesting game that fans of the original Duke Nukem 2D platformers may find enjoyment out of. Kicks, an arcade classic. Here you'll clear boards by drawing paths that fill up squares, in order to narrow down and isolate the energy beams in the middle. Be careful, as that thing moves quite sporadically. In addition, you have to be aware of the sparks which follow your cursor. If playing correctly, Kicks is a very fast-paced game that's sure to be a challenge. The Lynx version is perfect, and honestly, I felt like I was playing the original arcade game. The controls and mechanics felt identical to me, making this an excellent adaptation of the game. Rampage, another classic arcade game. In Rampage, you'll be terrorizing a city as a giant ape, lizard, or wolfman. Climb skyscrapers and destroy them with your fists, but be careful of the civilians trying to take you down. Should they become too much of a nuisance, you might want to climb up to their floor and gobble down despite their heroic ways. I love how nicely the buildings fall apart in this version. Rampage on the Lynx would have been a great alternative to the arcade game back when. Rampart. Gotta love that sweet intro animation. Rampart is a game of strategy. You have to defend your home castle from invaders while trying to capture other castles. There are 3 phases: building, cannon, and battle. Try your best to avoid enemy fire during the battle, although some damage is inevitable. This arcade conversion settles for being nothing short of spectacular, with excellent battle screens and rewarding gameplay as always. Road Blasters. This is one of the Lynx's most popular home conversions, probably because of how fast-paced it is, and its accuracy to the arcade original. You've got no lives to lose, so feel free to go as fast as possible while shooting at passing cars to clear up road space. Just be aware that crashing removes whatever power-ups you've collected. Basically, the goal is to get to the end of the track before your fuel runs out. If you're looking for a fast-paced game on your Lynx, this is definitely one to keep an eye out for. Robo-Squash, a Lynx exclusive. Here's a faux sports game with the most absurd story. In the 31st century, the president dies unexpectedly. The United World Federation is in chaos. Now the International Party wants to take over. Conventional warfare has become obsolete. So what do they turn to settle this conflict? Freaking Robo-Squash? So here's what I gathered from the gameplay. Both players have a net, which is used to toss the ball back and forth. You're both trying to clear the board of all bricks and power-ups, which then spawns a mechanical spider. Whoever's toss destroys the spider determines the winner. Try not to let the ball pass your net, else it squashes on the screen. If 3 balls are lost, the other automatically scores a point. For each win, you get to fill in a space. It seems you have to complete 16 matches to finish the game, which would take a while. Despite its unusual wackiness, Robo-Squash is pretty fun, and I recommend it. Robotron 2084. Kill the evil robots and save the last remaining human families. As is the case for many conversions of this game, you don't have twin sticks available, so you'll change firing directions with the use of a button. This, by default, isn't a preferred way to play the game, but for the Lynx, I guess this conversion isn't bad. Graphics and sound are both very similar to the arcade original, but whether you want to play it this way in 2023 is ultimately up to you. Rygar, another arcade conversion. Rygar is a fast-paced platforming adventure with simple controls and beautiful graphics. Your mission is to clear the lands of evil creatures so that your people can return to it. Rygar is exceptionally linear. All you really have to do is run from the entrance to the exit of a level. While greatly enjoyable, I will admit that the highly detailed and often animated background art sometimes had me mistaking it for the enemies. Nevertheless, definitely give this one a look. It's one of the Lynx's most charming and aesthetically pleasing titles. Scrapyard Dog. Initially a 7800 game, Scrapyard Dog came to the Lynx as a much cuter and seemingly easier platforming game. So the story goes, Mr. Big has stolen your dog. What fiend? Now you have to go find him. Despite being fairly easy overall, be aware that just one hit knocks out the player. Keep attentive and throw cans at enemies to quickly eliminate them from the screen. You can find other weapons to use later on, such as a stun gun, flamethrower, tri-laser, and more. I greatly prefer this to the 7800 version, if only for the player character being real ugly over there. Sorry, dude needs a nose job.
You're ugly.
Shadow of the Beast. A multi-platform game, this time a Metroidvania-style 2D platformer, which has a bit of an Oddworld vibe to it. Hey, that's not the Shadow, that's just the Beast. This game is interesting and mysterious, from the abstract music to the cryptic methods of making progress. I have to turn this guy's cannon on himself to pick up his weapon before going into a cave full of vicious bad guys and a dangerous boss fight. Disregarding how difficult this game is, it's actually a lot of fun once you understand how everything works. I do recommend it, but probably not without a guide. Shanghai. Would this be considered a Lynx exclusive? This version of it is anyways. So, are you familiar with Shanghai? This seems like a neat way of playing it. You've got a nice selection of patterns to choose from, and a funky Chinese-inspired soundtrack to listen to while you play. I have no doubts that this is a great version of the game, if you've played Shanghai before. Steel Talons. This may be the Lynx's most ambitious title. Steel Talons puts you in the seat of a helicopter with a huge open environment to explore. The objective is very simple. When your crosshair targets something, start shooting until it's destroyed. Keep exploring the map and you'll no doubt find every target. Once all targets are destroyed, you progress to the next level. The problem with this conversion of Steel Talons is that it's very hard to see things at a distance. Especially so on real hardware, so I've been told. It's more playable than I initially thought it would be, though it does play at like 5 frames per second, give or take. That alone's gonna keep most from playing this one. It's too far ahead of its time, surely, but respectable for what it tried to pull off. Stun Runner. Now here's an ambitious game that actually makes sense being on the platform. In this pseudo 3D racer, You'll be moving this vehicle down a pipe while shooting whatever gets in your way. It's a bit like Road Blasters in that aspect, but there are many differences, such as the vehicle being destroyed piece by piece as it takes damage. You can restore a piece at the end of a level if you've collected the required points. Extra points are granted for following specific objectives, like star patterns on the floor. The original arcade game used a cockpit design, making it pretty expensive and thus never got the chance to be too popular. But it was a hit in Chuck E. Cheese's, apparently. Super Asteroids and Missile Command. I'm assuming you're already familiar with these popular Atari arcade games. The asteroids concept hasn't evolved much here, though there is a neat power-up that lets you shoot in 3 directions. It isn't a bad version of asteroids per se, perfectly fine from a purist point of view. Missile Command, however, is a different story. It comes with a buy menu that allows you to upgrade your missiles and defenses. The sound and graphics are great too, although granted I wasn't expecting much here since, at the time, these were already nearly 10-year-old games. Although so too was Battlezone 2000, and that was great. A lot of Missile Command adaptations have fallen flat in my opinion, but this version of the game does justice to the arcade original. Super Off-Road. This arcade conversion had an extremely limited release, hitting retail after the Lynx was officially discontinued. That perhaps reflects the game's quality control, with a frame rate that makes it barely playable. Some Lynx fans have chimed in to say that it only takes getting used to, but is it really worth it? Even the 8-bit NES version is significantly better than this one. On the Lynx, it's a novelty at best. Super Squeak, another multi-platform game. I love the zooming effect of this UFO when choosing a new level. How cool is that? Anyways, King Squeak wants you to change all these blue tiles into pink. All you have to do is walk over them. Many tiles you'll need to step on have certain properties, which can either enhance or handicap the experience. Either way, you'll need to step on them all. In some levels, you're tasked with more than just the tiles, as you'll also have to free squeezettes by opening a path for them. Pretty fun. Switchblade II, a sequel to the Atari ST original, and yet another game with an awkward absence of music. But to its credit, Switchblade II is a really fun platformer, if a bit slow, at least in comparison with other Lynx platformers. One thing I especially liked here are the detailed graphics and variety of unique sound effects. Always love when there's an enemy hit sound, making each attack feel powerful. There's an in-game shop that you can access on occasion to upgrade your arsenal, health, and more, which expands the variety for a game that I think could have easily passed even without an upgrade menu. Despite a few minor shortcomings, this is a Lynx platformer that I don't think you should miss out on. Todd's Adventures in Slime World. Initially a Lynx exclusive, but it came to other platforms 2 years later. Todd finds a mysterious drifting spaceship and climbs aboard, only to find it full of slime. While collecting gems in this unique platformer, you'll often find Todd being covered in the stuff. To get rid of this toxic slime, you'll have to find water pools to clean yourself off. Whether careful or not, you'll probably end up slimed one way or another, as even the creatures you'll need to dispose of release a burst of slime upon execution. There's only one escape vessel in the ship, so you'll have to get to it first before the monsters do, else you'll be trapped here forever. One cool fact about Todd in Slime World is that you can use comlinks to play with up to 8 people at once in cooperative. That's pretty wild. Toki. Having a highly accurate portable version of an arcade game at the time must have been sweet. In Toki, you've been turned into a magical ape that can shoot from his mouth. Best of all, this attack can eliminate enemy projectiles. Another fun perk is being able to step on enemy heads Super Mario style. Toki controls very well, if a tad floaty, but either way, very easy to adjust to. The variety in locations is pretty cool. You'll be going from the ground to climbing vines and even swimming in the water. Collect power-ups like the Flame Belch to do more damage. Toki is awesome. Tournament Cyberball. It's a traditional game of football, with robots, and explosions. Unlike NFL football on the system, the perspective here is shifted diagonally instead of top-down. The robotic voice samples were fun to hear. There's a lot of personality in this game. Beyond those sounds, however, I found it a bit hard to actually tell that these were robots. Well, what can I say? Seems like a good time. Turbo Sub. Now this arcade conversion is something special, though probably not for everyone. Turbo Sub is a 3D shoot-'em-up where you'll frequently switch between sky and sea. None of this is scripted, you can do it at your own will. Gosh, the beautiful water below, the window wiper as you ascend, it all looks great. Crazy impressive. Unfortunately, there are shortcomings. It's hard to tell whether a projectile heading your way is actually going to hit you or not. I guess the Sub's hitbox is fairly small. Either way, you're gonna die quite a bit, especially underwater, where it almost seems like your hitbox increases? Still, for gameplay this innovative, on a system so old, I felt inclined to keep playing if just for the wow factor. It's just so well done. To make it even better, there's even an upgrade shop for new weapons and defenses. I love Turbo Sub. Viking Child. Forget what I said about Switchblade II, now this is a slow platformer. Viking Child is a multi-platform game from its time. Once again, an absence of music. It's a fairly simple, decent-looking 2D platformer, with plenty of fun additives like an upgrade shop to further expand your inventory. If it didn't feel like it was running in slow motion, this would be an easy recommendation. After watching some footage of the DOS version, I'm confident that you should play that one instead. Warbirds. This Lynx exclusive is a treat, though probably far more so with 4-player Comlinks multiplayer. Warbirds is a dogfighting game of deathmatch where you pilot a Red Baron among other Red Barons. You can change a variety of cheat-esque options before starting, though otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing over and over. My lord, is it impressive though. All you have to do, really, is eliminate the opponents. What makes it so cool is that, like BattleWheels, you can swap between any of the plane's perspectives by holding B while pressing the directions on your D-pad. These days it's more of an impressive tech feat than anything else, though I must admit, I did have some fun with it for at least a couple minutes. World Class Soccer. Well, there was an attempt. Xenophobe. Even today, this arcade classic is still well worthy of being played on Lynx, especially if using Comlinks multiplayer. The original arcade game took up only a fraction of the screen, but on Lynx, each player will connect their own system to enjoy the game cooperatively in full screen. Your mission here is to eliminate the alien invaders in various drifting spaceships so as to preserve them. Alas, if the coming is too strong, you can perform a self-destruct to give it up and move on to the next one. With a variety of special characters to use, and a stellar presentation overall, Xenophobe on the Lynx is an incredible conversion. Zybots. Another impressive arcade conversion. The Federation warrior must save this vital space station from the invasive Zybots. In this 3D labyrinth shooter, you're always facing forwards, but you can change directions by holding B and pressing the D-pad. A safe practice is to turn directions just before reaching the end of a corridor, because otherwise, you might end up face to face with a deadly species of Zybot. Several Zybots have unique methods of defense, like a deployable shield, so be alert for new enemy types which may have an unexpected advantage. Killing Zybots grant you coins which you can use at the end of a level to upgrade your stats and even buy keys. At any time, you can access an in-game map by pressing the Option 2 button, which will come in handy later into the game. I had a great time with this space adventure, and so should you if you're looking to give it a try. Zarlor Mercenary. Our last game is another Lynx exclusive. This one seems to have a small cult following behind it, so I'll do my best here, but wow, this is not welcoming for beginners. Is it a bullet hell or a traditional shmup? Bullet hells usually have some sort of pattern for avoiding shots, but a lot of enemy fire here seems to be unavoidable. Initially, I was quite impressed with this game. It has a great variety of colors and entirely destructible environments. Not surprising that this level of quality came from the developers of the Lynx themselves. It was mind-blowing to see simulated depth, with enemy ship shadows appearing before the ships themselves. Should you do well, you can upgrade your ship with power-ups or by using the in-game store, though good luck avoiding enemy fire long enough to make that happen. I mean, check out this thing here. How was I supposed to know the first time that it would charge at me lightning speed? All I can say is, this is not an entry-level shmup, but it's probably fine once you adjust to the difficulty curve. Wow, I've been doing this script for, let's see now, at least 10 hours. Miraculously, I feel like my COVID symptoms are gone. So if you're feeling the symptoms, I guess just play some Atari Lynx. But anyways, those were the Atari Lynx's 71 retail games. This was a pretty varied list, with a great deal of exclusives and multi-platform titles. Even the repurposed arcade games are in my opinion worth a look, as they consist of mostly high-quality conversions. Although granted, there isn't too much of a reason to play most of those over their originals these days. Of the 71 games in this list, today I've recommended nearly 60 of them. That's incredible! This is one of the most consistently enjoyable libraries I've covered yet. Now, while I do recommend these games, I can't say there's any particular one that sticks out as a system seller. I find they're more enjoyable as short-term experiences. I could never play an Atari Lynx game again and honestly be fine with that. But with Nintendo and Sega's handhelds, there are plenty of remarkable games that I still revisit from time to time. The Lynx's failure makes sense, but it's still a shame regardless that a system with so many enjoyable games would end up as a commercial flop. I'd like to give a shout out to Greg's Game Room, who actually beat me to the punch this last summer. Props to you, dude. I know it was no easy task. Go check out his video for another perspective of these games, especially the sports ones. I am completely useless for those. They're only on this list by obligation. He knows what he's doing there. So, which Atari Lynx game was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.